Next guest says, I mentioned it a moment ago, here's his quote, "You can't put enough lipstick on this pig to make the report palatable." Well, Joseph Brusuelas is senior economist at Bloomberg LP. He joins us now, and he's chock full of colorful comments. And look, I'm sure there's more colorful comments being made about this morning's report.
Yeah, many we can't really repeat on air.
That's right.
But those that we can, I think, in terms of us taking back and looking at a bigger picture here, is that there was some demand destruction in the first half of the year that accompanied the run-up in energy prices that clearly knocked the wind out of the sails of consumers. And then the ongoing sovereign debt crisis, uncertainty about the policy and tax environment going forward, just clearly caused, small and mid-sized firms who've been responsible for the increase in hiring that we saw between February and April, hit the brakes and just decide we're going to stop hiring. And essentially that's what we saw over the last 2 months.
Let me ask you this. You just said small and mid-sized firms. Is that where we saw a loss in jobs or not hiring anymore? Because I was confused with same-store sales being so strong, and those are the big retailers. I wouldn't put those in the small and mid-sized category. And yesterday we got those two other jobs reports out, ADP as well as initial jobless claims, better than expected. The ADP report, more than twice what economists were expecting in terms of payroll ads. How do you reconcile the data like this on a daily basis?
Even if you look inside the ADP report, which was highly positive, you saw stuff that was disturbing. Essentially what we've seen is since the beginning of the recovery in June 2009, large firms have essentially shed 16,000 jobs. Large firms simply are choosing to use the capital, use the cash that they've raised to purchase capital, substitute more technology for labor. They're enhancing their productivity and actually increasing their own profitability. Small and mid-sized firms don't have that opportunity. They're cash constrained. They don't have access to capital. In order to meet just current demand, they're actually having to hire the marginal worker to meet the increase in marginal demand. Now, what happens is when we hit these periods of uncertainty, whether they're from Washington or they're from Europe, small and mid-sized firms just don't have the forward look to look through some of the uncertainty. So what they do is they clinch up and they quit hiring, and that's what we're seeing.
Yesterday we had an economist when we were talking about the unemployment rate, and based on the jobs reports yesterday, I was asking, do you think we dip below 9% unemployment for some time through this year? And he said it would actually be nice to see it tick up, suggesting that there would be more people perhaps looking for jobs. Today's report, we see the unemployment rate go up, but we also see the labor force participation rate hit an all-time low, right? We haven't seen a low like this since 1984.
Well, that's correct.
Where are people going?
They're not. That's one of the problems. We now have, I think it's very clear, a quasi-structural problem in the labor force, meaning that there are a lot of people out there who don't have the skills to meet jobs that are open. In today's Bloomberg Economic Brief, we put together quite a few charts, and we put together something called the beverage curve, which is a graphical representation of the job vacancy rate and the unemployment rate. Job vacancies are actually increasing, meaning there are jobs out there, but the unemployment rate's remaining elevated and has indeed moved up in the last 2 months. That tells me we got a structural problem. It's not just cyclical. Even when we finally get out of this, whenever that is, I don't expect the unemployment rate to snap back towards 6% and actually to stay much higher.
What's the difference, structural versus cyclical?
Okay, cyclical is when you hit a downturn, you see a natural increase in unemployment, but as aggregate demand picks back up, hiring picks back up. If you've got a structural problem, what that means is you've got an unemployed pool of labor out there who just don't have the skill sets that they're going to allow them to find the jobs. Let's think about it this way. 2.3 million construction workers who are out of work since the housing boom went bust, they're not going to find work. They're going to have to find different lines of work, probably at lower wages.
So the interesting thing is we did see the president respond to this morning's jobs report. We certainly have seen the Federal Reserve, we've seen the Treasury Secretary all talk about putting liquidity into the system, making our companies strong, making our banking sector strong. What are they doing to address this structural mismatch, this issue with skilled laborers and vacancies?
Okay, two things. One is that the combined efforts of the past two administrations has resulted in an extra $1 trillion worth of fiscal spending. The Fed's injected $2 trillion of liquidity into the system, and all we've really gotten is a 9.2% unemployment rate. I don't think liquidity is the problem here. Okay?
Exactly.
First of all. Second, neither the Bush administration nor the Obama administration has taken any steps to target what's clearly now a structural problem with unemployment. We're going to have to think creatively here. In the 1980s, when the Europeans went through a period of what economists call hysteresis, when your job market is essentially structurally broken, they had to engage in a sustained and expensive effort to retrain many of those workers who used to work in European industries but had to go into the service sector. It's going to be very difficult to retrain a construction worker to have them go work in the service industry. It's not going to be easy. But I think over time, the American public will demand that sort of policy response. And in Washington, they're going to have to think creatively, especially given the fiscal constraints that we have now. I saw what the president said today. It was an interesting retreat he's beating here. He's sounding a lot more like the Republicans here and signaling, well, maybe we need to think about tax cuts that target employment. Now, hopefully they're permanent. If they're temporary, that might not be so good.
All right, Joe, always appreciate you on this show. Thanks for joining us on this Friday.
Thank you.